Welcome to this edition of One on One. I'm Howie Rose, and today I am joined by not only a New York baseball icon, but a former Mets player as well as manager. A lot of people don't remember he played for the Mets, but he, of course, is Willie Randolph. And Willie, it's great to see you after a while. How you been?
I know. I miss you, Howie. It's been a long time, brother, but looking forward to chatting with you, brother.
Yeah, you did play for the Mets. You know, a lot of people don't remember that because it was kind of a turbulent time in Mets history anyway, maybe a transient time would be a better way to put it. But you have any particular memories of that little bit of time you played with the Mets?
Of course, yeah. It was really kind of weird for me because it's like coming full circle. As you know, I grew up a Met fan and, spent a lot of time in Shea Stadium. Matter of fact, my wife and I went on our first legitimate date at Shea Stadium. And then we're married for almost over 40 years right now. But I remember going to Shea Stadium, coming home from Brooklyn, New York, and sitting up in the upper deck, rooting for my heroes like Cleon Jones, Tom Seaver, Don Clendenin, Tommy Agee, Ken Boswell, who was the second baseman, obviously, was one of my favorite guys. People say, "Who's one of your favorite second basemen?" I said, "Ken Boswell." They go, "Ken who?" It's like, you did remember? I said, "No, I love Ken Boswell, man."
That's why you wore his number, right?
That's right. That's right. I started wearing 12 because of Ken Boswell. So, and I wasn't into all the big stars. I just love good, gritty ball players. And I thought Ken did a great job of that. But I remember coming back after Milwaukee in '91. I had a great year. I hit 326, came third in the league in hitting that year. And then I became a free agent. And then it came around to where the Mets, Jeff Torborg was the manager at the time, obviously, and he tapped into me. So it was like a homecoming for me, Howie. I mean, after all those years being with the Yankees, and then all those years rooting for the hometown Mets, when they won in '69, we went nuts. My kids, we were dancing in the streets and the whole thing against the mighty Orioles. So for me, it was just almost like icing on the cake at the end of my career. Listening to Ralph Kiner and Lindsey Murphy, Bob Murphy and Lindsey Nelson. That was the soundtrack of my young upbringing. So to play for the team that year, we had a nice squad. Remember, we had a pretty good team that year, but I think August we started getting hurt. I think Saberhagen went down. I think Doc got hurt. I broke my hand against, ironically, the Pirates. I started out with the Pirates as a rookie back in the day, and Bob Walk threw me a fastball right in my head. I think he was a little bit of a headhunter too, man. But anyway,
I could tell him that if I ever see him again, because he's still broadcasting.
When I see him, I'm going to tell him myself. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so he threw a ball that was coming right for my noggin, man. And all I can do was just throw my hand up to protect my face. He hit me on the back of my hand, broke the fifth metatarsal. And for all intents and purposes, my season was just about over because I think I got back maybe 2 weeks before the season ended in '92. And then the Pirates took over. We started struggling a little bit. We had a lot of injuries. And we had a nice squad. We had Eddie Murray. We had a nice squad that year, man. But we just could not put I think David Cohn might have gotten hurt too, I think, that year at the end. But anyway, we just didn't finish up strong. The Pirates got hot. They took over. And so I wanted to get back on the field before the season was over, just to kind of let everybody know that I was healthy, that I was fine. That's when Jeff Kent came over. Mm-hmm. And he kind of was the future. So I got back on the field. I was able to play a couple games at the end, let everybody know I was healthy. And then I remember I walked my last at bat at Shea. I walked. Ironically, I had over 1,200 walks, but I walked on my last at B, and I got to first base. And Jeff Torborg did a really nice thing. He took me out of the game. The fans, New York fans, have always been great to me, especially Met fans, of course. And I walked off the field, and that was the last time I ever played.
Well, you talked about not only playing at Shea Stadium as an active Met, but going there on your first date. How old were you and Gretchen, or how old were you anyway? I don't give Gretchen's age away. How old were you when you went on that first date to Shea?
I was probably like 15, maybe, somewhere around there. It was right before I graduated from high school. I mean, I really couldn't afford to go to Shea. So, when I had a little summer job, so I figured I saved up enough money to go on a legit date, instead of going to Coney Island and 42nd Street eating hot dogs and stuff. So we went to Shea, and she knew nothing about baseball. They were playing the Chicago Cubs. She fell in love with Billy Williams because he was cute. Yeah, okay, whatever. Oh, he's so cute. But do you know what a double is? No, I have no idea. So that's the good part about my wife, that she knew nothing about baseball. So she didn't marry me for my money, that's for sure.
She learned about baseball, right? Was she second-guessed your decisions when you managed, or give you advice?
Oh, yeah. She knows more baseball than I do, Howie. She's learned to raise the kids at the ballpark. She understands the game totally. we talk baseball all the time, and she knows her stuff. So she learned over the years, but initially she had no idea what a baseball was.
Let me go back to your youth playing in Brooklyn, eventually making it to the major leagues, because the path that you took and that your contemporaries took is a lot different than what it is now. They didn't have as many travel teams back. We're the same age. So I remember, you know, when we were 15, 16, 14, whatever, there weren't travel teams and showcases the way they are now. So how did a kid like yourself or any of the others you played with manage to get enough attention from scouts or to just find the outlet to display your talents and abilities to be recognized?
Yeah, well, you're bringing me back. Great question, Howie. We played, again, obviously for the love of the game. We were in the streets playing stick ball, punch ball, stoop ball, any kind of ball. And I got most of my exposure playing in Central Park in the parade grounds. That's where the bird dogs would come down, the scouts. You always tell they had their sun visors and their little beach chairs and they had the little clipboards. And we got so excited every time we saw these guys sitting in the stands on these concrete bleachers. And that's how I got my initial exposure. Now, later on into high school, making honorable mention and all city, that's when they started really coming around. But my real exposure to scouts and bird dogs was probably in Canarsie, Seaview area where they had baseball out there and near Bensonhurst. But most of it was just Prospect Park, Diamond 7, Diamond number 1. Those were the most, the nicer areas to play in. And that's how I started being exposed to that. And it's really weird when you mention these showcases. Our showcase and travel things. Remember the academy? Remember Kansas City Academy back in the day?
Yeah. The Royals, the first one.
That's right. That was that's the first of that kind at the time. And I remember getting an invitation to go out to Hempstead, Long Island. Hempstead, Long Island. They had a big field out in Hempstead. I got up like the crack of dawn on a Saturday morning, and we went out to Hempstead, and we had this tryout. I was at the time a shortstop. I came out of high school as a shortstop, so I'm out there taking ground balls. I remember so vividly, Howie. And I wasn't a real big guy, but I had a good, strong arm. So I remember getting in the hole a couple of times to try to show off my arm. And the guy would just get on top and throw across the diamond. And I was heaving the ball across the diamond. Like I had my best stuff. And I remember the scout coming up to me and saying, "Is that the hardest you can throw?" And I was like,
You don't want to hear that.
I didn't know what to say because I was like, wait a minute, should I tell the truth? I said, yeah, I thought I was letting it go pretty good, you know. But that was my first legitimate trial with a accumulation of scouts and kids from all over the city there. I thought I fared pretty well, but that's how we were exposed back in the day. But we didn't really think a lot about that kind of stuff, Howie. We just wanted to play. We just loved to play the game, any kind of pickup game we can play. If we were exposed and we were, open to seeing other people see us play, that was great. But it wasn't until right before junior high school to high school where I really started to really hone in on how good I was. And the fact that my coach was telling me that they were giving them these little calling cards from the scouts going, "Hey, when's the next time this kid's going to play? We want to come see him play."
Now, did you know any of the scouts personally? Because there were some legendary New York scouts. I guess Herb Stein was the one who comes to mind initially. Did you know Herb, and could you see when he was at one of your games? And
No, that's so weird. I had no idea who any of these guys were. The first time I really met a scout was the guy that signed me, Mr. Dutch Deutsch, Pirate Scout, legendary Pirate Scout, Dutch Deutsch. He signed me when I was ready to finish my senior year. Is when they really started coming around, and I knew that Dutch was in the stands because he would always wear that pirate, that gold and black pirate hat. Yeah. And my high school coach told me that he was coming. So Dutch was the only guy that I really knew of all the scouts. We just was playing. We didn't care about who was around. We just wanted to play.
In the winter of 1975, going into 76, you're in the pirate system. You had a cup of coffee there, but then you get the news that you're traded home to New York, to the Yankees. What was your reaction then?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. It was like a dream come true. I was in Venezuela playing winter ball, and there was rumors coming around. My mother would call me and said, "They're always talking in Daily News and the Post about the Yankees maybe making this trade with the Pirates." And I had no clue that I was going to be even in the mix, because at the time I'm thinking, as a young player, let me have a good off season, good winter ball, so maybe I can make the team as a utility guy. Now the Yankees always had that litany of all these great second basemen. Rennie Stennett was there at the time. Plus they had guys coming up behind me. Dave Cash had just left. So I was a part of that little legacy of good second basemen. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I can make the team as a utility guy, not focusing that I'm not going to be a utility guy. 21, I'm not going to be doing that. So I actually had a great winter. Finally, the news came down where they said, "You coming home?" And it started that storybook run with the Yankees. I was still couldn't believe that I actually was going to come to my hometown, play in front of my family and friends, and play for the one of the most storied franchises in all of baseball, the New York Yankees. So it was a dream come true. I had no idea that I would get that opportunity. I really didn't know how good I was, Howie, really, because obviously there was a 3-for-1 trade. It was me, Doc Ellis, and Ken Brett for Doc Medich. And Doc Medich at the time was a pretty good pitcher, if you remember.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Doc Ellis was just done. He was done. Although he won 17 games for us that year. If you remember, Doc Ellis, who just came off LSD, I think.
Oh, he pitched a no-hitter on one, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he was one of my first roommates. Why would they put me with somebody else? No, but I love
How'd that go?
Actually, he was a mentor. He actually was cleaning up at the time. He was doing well, but Doc never influenced me that way, obviously. But Ken Brett was kind of a throw-in relief pitcher. He could hit, of course, yes, but it nationally didn't matter. But so I thought that, they want me. I'm the guy, but I really didn't realize that. So long story short, once I got my feet wet after I came home from winter ball and got into, trying to find out how we're going to get this thing rolling, it started out just a magical run.
But just to back up for a second, when you were in the Pirates organization, did you, because you mentioned guys like Rennie Stennett and Dave Cash, but did you get to work with Mazeroski, Bill Mazeroski at all? And did he influence you whatsoever?
No, I got a chance to see him. I was back at the big league camp that's year in 75. And he was moseying around, just like Clemente that just passed. But I remember being in the building around, but I never worked with him, Howie. I never really got a chance to talk to him. Back then, rookies were, seen and not heard. So I'm walking around watching Willie Stargell and Al Oliver and all these Richie Zist and Steve Blass, all these great players. I was just shut your mouth and just play, So I saw him, walking through the car on the field and the backfields and stuff, but I would never walk up to him and approach him. You know who one of my coaches were at the time? He's an old Negro League player named Gene Baker. I don't know if you remember Gene Baker.
Yeah, he played for the Cubs and the Phillies.
Yes. Yeah. I had the luxury of working with the great Gene Baker as a rookie coming through the Pirates. So anybody that was affiliated with that old school vibe, for me, a Negro League player, that's like, a gift, So, but never got a chance to really sit and talk to Mazeroski about turning double play. It's such an honor for me to be named and mentioned in the same breath with him, because I'm like with the top 3 in double plays in the history of baseball. So I think it's Mazeroski, me, and Nellie Fox or something like that, I believe. Unbelievable honor. That's
pretty good, huh?
It gives me goosebumps when I think about being named in that class.
Well, how about this? So Willie comes to the Yankees, who were about to win a pennant in 1976. Reggie Jackson's not there yet, but there are several other big stars who were. And here's this rookie who manages not only to play every day, but to have an impact. And as I recall, Billy Martin hit you ninth a great deal of the early part of your rookie season with the Yankees. Did he do that to break you in slowly? And even though you're a 21, 22-year-old kid, did it bother you that you hit ninth? He had Rivers leading off and a whole lot of others.
Yeah, Roy White.
Roy White, yeah. But was that intentional to bring you along slowly, or did it bother you somehow?
I think it might have been. Billy always took care of me. He's very protective of me as a young player. I was 21 years old. I was barely 21. So I don't think they wanted to throw me right into the fire, but they did have veterans like Mickey Rivers and Roy White. The great Thurman Munson was there. So I'm kind of glad he kind of eased me in a little bit, because, I didn't really feel pressure, but I knew that I was in a big spot. So it didn't take too long for him to move me up a little bit in the lineup. And then once he saw how I handled myself in the base paths with my speed, and Roy was getting a little bit older at that time. I think he and Lou Piniella were kind of platooning at the time, So I think that once he saw that I can handle it and saw how mature I was for my age, that's when I think I started to move up a little bit. Towards the end of the year, he probably put me second here, first or second. But then in 77, then I was leading off most of the time.
Well, for those of us who are old enough to remember, there was a game that we played on the streets or the schoolyards or whatever, Ringolevio, right?
Yes.
We played Ringolevio.
Ringolevio, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. And now I used to call, when I started to know Willie, and he was a kid and I was a kid radio reporter, I used to call Willie Bass, because in Ringolevio, base was the safe haven. You'd be
Right.
chased all over the place, but if you can get to base, that's where you could take a deep breath. That's what Willie was like in a Yankee clubhouse that included some borderline lunatics like Reggie Jackson, Greg Nettles. Canella would be yelling stuff at Catfish that you couldn't believe. I mean, this is all in front of an impressionable kid. So, I'd walk near that clubhouse looking to do interviews, and I was so happy when you had a good night because I knew I could stop by your locker and get a nice, calm, intelligent, reasoned interview as opposed to some of the other nuttiness that was going around that clubhouse. How did you, as a 22, 23-year-old kid, survive in that context with that group in that clubhouse?
Yeah. It was hard at times only because there was so much always pulling around us. It was always something going on. But what really helped me, Howie, was that Chris Chambliss was my first roommate, and you know how Chris was just very quiet, very dignified, a guy that really I learned how to handle myself as a young player. Now I saw how Chris was in the clubhouse. We would sit up at times at night and just talk for hours about how to handle ourselves on and off the field. But I always felt, again, going back to what I said earlier, Howie, as a rookie, you always seen but not heard. We weren't as boisterous, we weren't as flamboyant. And I think that with guys like Thurman Munson in the room, who was the captain, you knew where your place was. You just knew that, you play hard every day, you learn and absorb as much as you can. But as a young player, I was always kind of an intense kind of guy too, Howie. So, remember back in the day, we say we just get psyched. Let's get psyched before the game. Let's get psyched. You know what I mean? And that was my mentality. I was very, very intense as a young player. So it was easy for me to stay focused. And I knew I had to be focused in a situation like that where you're coming into an environment where you're supposed to win. You're in New York, you're on the big stage. I just felt that was better for me to really stay focused on my job. And the veterans that I had really kept me in an even keel, no matter how well I did.
And so you go on not only to do well, but I mean, you had a terrific playing career, clearly a winner. The record states that at some point along the way, you had to think about managing, that was something that you wanted to handle at some point later on. When did that start to foment in your mind?
Yeah, it was probably right towards the end of my career. After I was named captain of the Yankees, I started feeling the responsibility of being one of the guys that really was accountable every day, a team player who helped everyone in the clubhouse. So I could kind of feel that I enjoyed teaching and coaching and sharing with my teammates. So it wasn't until I retired, I went to the front office for a minute with Gene Michael just to kind of see what I was like. But when Mr. Steinbrenner asked me, I think in '93, so what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't like wearing the suit for sure. Let me get back on the field and see if I help these kids out. So once I got the clearance from Buck Showalter, at the time was the manager, I kind of started feeling like, you know what, this is something I want to do. So I went down to instructional league, got a crash course on coaching third base, and then things just took off from there. '94, we had the year where obviously we were at the strike, and then they canceled the World Series. It was crazy. And then '95, we went into that disappointment when we lost to the Seattle Mariners with that big walk-off. And then '96 took over when Torrey came in. So when Torrey came in, that's when I started to really feel that I was really enjoying working with the players, working with Derek Jeter, the core four. And that's when that started rolling in my blood that I really want to give back, coach, and then hopefully look forward to getting a chance to manage.
Did you connect with Joe right away? Another Brooklyn kid, another guy who made it big in the major leagues, who would also play for and manage the Mets. But was there an instant connection there?
Not instant. It was really interesting because, I knew of Joe. I knew who he was, excellent player, and he's been around. But I was a holdover from the last regime. So I had to kind of earn his trust a little bit. Not that, I thought that was going to be an issue, Howie. It's just that, when you come into this situation and you don't want to feel like you're being pushed on a manager. And back then, managers could pick their coaches for the most part. Nowadays, it's different. Nowadays, you get lucky if you can pick one guy, a pitching coach, a hitting coach, third base coach. But back in the day, you remember, you could almost pick your whole staff. So I wanted to earn his trust. We hit it off right away. It was never a problem. I was never concerned about that. After the first couple of months, he saw that I wasn't running upstairs to George's office being a spy, and he saw that I was a hard worker, and we clicked. So Joe, to this day, one of my best friends, and it didn't take long for him to trust me, and then to be on that run with him for so long, it was just magical.
And so 8 years later, the opportunity presents itself to manage the Mets. Omar Minaya, another New York guy, another guy you probably knew somewhat. is the general manager at the time. Can you walk us through the process of how they contacted you or you reached out to them and the interview process and how it culminated in your becoming manager of the Mets?
Yeah, actually, Howie, I had that interview for the job prior to that when Art Howe got the job. So I think it was Steve Phillips was the general manager at the time. I interviewed with them. I think it was a few years prior to that, and I didn't get it obviously. But then when it came around the second time after Art Howe got fired, Omar, who I had known casually over the years, tapped into me, said, "You want me to come in for an interview?" I came in, sat with him first, and talked about what he was expecting from me. Met with Jeff and the brass, and we all just hit it off really well. It just really came together, and didn't really know at the time because I had been through some opportunities where it fell through for me. It got a little frustrating for a while. I think I made through maybe 10 interviews. Some of them I thought were token interviews. Some of them I thought weren't really legit. I remember walking to a few interviews, and I had some of the people in the media telling me that, Willie, you're not going to get this job. They already know who they're going to take. And so why am I going? But I had to go to impress them. So hopefully get a chance to meet some of these guys so they can know who I am. So in the future, if they come back my way, they will know and feel comfortable with me. So it was some frustrating years there, Howie, for a while before I really got a legitimate shot with Omar. And I felt good about that because I really felt like there was a connection there. I mean, the whole vibe of it was perfect, being a New Yorker, again, coming full circle where I get a chance to manage a team that I actually ended up rooting for as a kid. So it was just a good time for me. I thought I was ready and prepared for it, way beyond. But it was just, again, another one of those dream come trues because you can't, put into words, this coming together the way it did and understanding that, wow, I'm actually managing the team that I spent many years rooting for.
Willie, even though you knew that there were certain interviews you would go on that were basically token interviews,
Mm-hmm.
and you knew when they were talking to you that their intent was not to hire or even consider you, even though you say you wanted to make a good impression for the future, which made all the sense in the world,
Mm-hmm.
how did you hold your tongue? How did you keep from saying, come on, man, this is BS
Right.
and I know it's BS. Why are we wasting each other's time?
Yeah, it was really tough, Howard. It was really hard. Uh, that's why I'm so happy that now we're opening up in society right now in this culture, being able to express yourself. A lot of Black players back in the day, you have to really be careful on how you came across. You didn't want to come across as being militant, and back then that was be a label they're throwing you right away. Oh, he's militant, or he's angry and things of that nature. So I tried to pick my spots. I didn't shy away from dealing with certain issues, but it just wasn't something that we felt comfortable with back in the day. We'd talk amongst ourselves. You get together with guys, Winfield, or some of the guys would go have a beer after the game. We'd talk about some of the things we all went through, some of the challenges that we had to deal with, and everything. But it was just I knew that if I wanted an opportunity to continue to get opportunities to grow, they had to really be careful on what I said. And again, that's hard to do sometimes, Howard, because I'm outspoken. I like to be honest about what I feel, but I just didn't want to. I knew there was very few of us in the pipeline, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't mess up that opportunity. And you just never know. The so-called old boy network was prevalent back then. Now there's a new old boy network, of course, but I just felt like, excuse me a second. I just felt like, you know what, I had to really be careful and choose my words, because if I got knocked off that list, and there was always a short list, then I might not have got another chance. And I just wanted so badly at that time to not mess up my opportunity to maybe manage in the major leagues.
And we'll talk more about managing the Mets in a moment, but to stay on point here, what about now? I mean, I haven't seen where you've been outspoken to a point where teams would shy away from you. You had a nice run with them, and you won a division with the Mets. And when you left managing the Mets, I think it would have been fair to suggest that you would have been right in that mix with other managers who would get, in some cases, many opportunities later on.
Right.
What's happened? How come you haven't managed since?
I've spent a lot of time bogging my mind down about trying to figure out why, Howie. And again, I just really don't know. I mean, usually when you get an opportunity as a Black man, you usually only get one shot, but if you're successful, then you feel like, okay, they saw what you can do. They see what the job you did. You usually get another shot, maybe. I actually went to Milwaukee for 2 years as a bench coach with Maka. I went to Baltimore with Showalter for 1 year. And then I did a lot of WBC, like international stuff. We just finished doing the Olympics. So my point is that I stayed out there. I stayed somewhat relevant. That whole thing about out of sight, out of mind. I was
Mhm.
always there. So that's what made it disappointing for me. So I really, after a while, I stopped trying to think about why, because I just couldn't figure it out, especially when you saw other guys getting opportunities, second and third chance, the AJ Hinches of the world. Buddy Black, who's an excellent manager, he got multiple shots. I can name a few other guys, but that's the frustrating part about it, that I always felt like being a part of being a manager, and especially the Mets, is that I was the first African American manager in New York history, and that meant a lot to me. That meant, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because I felt that was the way for me to be an inspiration, just like Jackie Robinson was an inspiration to me, Frank Robinson, all these cats, Dusty Baker. They made it easier for me to get to where I got at that time. It's just that I just felt like if I didn't continue this part of moving forward, then I maybe wouldn't be able to inspire other people. So even though I got fired and I moved on, I thought that I would another shot to keep moving. So guys like Lloyd McClendon and guys like DeMarlo Hale, Bo Porter could get an opportunity. So that's what disappointed me more than anything, is that, there was very few of us, Howie, but I felt like if I could have, continued to grow, and I was still growing as a young manager. Don't get me wrong now. I was a rookie in New York, and that wasn't easy to do, but I felt like every year I got better. So I was just disappointed that I wasn't able to, after 3.5 years, continue to move forward. But nowadays, again, it's been so long that I don't even know if with all the analytics out there right now, if these guys feel comfortable with the perception of old school or whatever. I mean, listen, to me, it's experience. It's not about old school, new school. It's experience. And I just feel like I still have a lot to offer in that way. But again, getting back to the old boy network, there's kind of a new old boy network out there now. And a lot of these cats, they're kind of like around people that are like them, you know what I mean? And that's fine, but it's just that they have to open things up a little bit, get everyone in the pipeline. So when interviews come about, you have diversity and you can really pick the best person for the job.
Are you advocating for yourself now as a managerial candidate? Do you put the word out?
Not really. I stopped doing that about 5 or 6 years ago, only because I could see the way the game was evolving. And when I did reach out, I wasn't getting a lot of calls back. It got to the point where you didn't want to feel like, I mean, again, I stayed in the game, so I felt like I was still visible. And when I went to Yankee Stadium, when I went to spring training with the Yankees, again, just the visibility is there. So I didn't really advocate too much for that, because after a while, you don't want to feel like you're begging. You know what I mean? I felt like that after a while. I really felt like, wait a minute, I'm here, I'm qualified. I feel like I'm overqualified. And if they're not calling, then maybe the transformation in the game is just, I'm out of it right now. So I just still continue to teach, continue to grow, because you just never know when you're going to get a call. But I don't really reach out as much anymore, because like I said, a lot of these young guys, I don't really know a lot of these young cats. And when I did reach out,
the GMs.
yeah, right, the executives, some of the young guys. I mean, I can't mention them by name. A lot of these guys, a lot of them are very, very smart, Harvard grads, Princeton grads. A lot of these cats, I'm sure they know exactly what they're doing. But I think that there's somewhat of you have to be familiar, I guess, in this game. And a lot of these cats, I don't know if they know. But again, I answer your question. I haven't really reached out that much lately, but I'm still enjoying what I'm doing, just in case something comes up. I would love to be a part of an organization in some capacity, but in this case, you really can't. The game has changed so much that you really can't force your way into it anymore. You have to basically, not they have to approach you, but you just have to just kind of keep your name out there, and hopefully that you get a call.
And you've witnessed the change since your playing days in the population of African-American players within the game. African-American players in Major League Baseball is down significantly from what it was in the 70s.
8%.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? What's the solution? We're losing a lot of potentially great ball players to other sports or for other reasons. How do we get them back?
Wow, that's a great question, and we need another hour to delve into that, because there's so many different reasons for it. A lot of it's socio-economical. The way the game is changed nowadays, Howie, with the traveling teams and showcasing. A lot of African American kids can't afford the equipment. They can't afford traveling to North Carolina or to Virginia or to Florida to be showcased. I mean, we would go to, like I said, we would go to Prospect Park, and the scouts were there. You don't see that anymore. I think a lot what they're doing nowadays, in some cases, they're videotaping a lot of these kids and sending it to these scouts, and that's how they're breaking down some of these kids. I just think that we need to, and I've always gone back to this because it's basic grassroots. When I go back to the old neighborhood, Howie, I don't see manicured baseball fields. We need to have baseball diamonds. It's different than basketball, where you can just get a concrete slab and just put a couple hoops up, or you can just get a big patch of grass and play football. Baseball's different. You have to have the parks department in the cities to maintain these fields in the inner city, so these kids can go to these ballparks and feel comfortable about moving around on the diamond, and they can have a nice, secure place to play the game. That's where I think it starts. Easier said than done. They have different programs out there, RBI and a few other things they're doing in baseball. That's great. But I still think in general, you have to have a bigger group of fields so you can get these kids in different neighborhoods to play the game. And then you have to get to teach, to grow, to move up through good, sound, fundamental teaching. And you don't get that either. So I think that from a player standpoint, we need to bring it back so we make it fun for the kids so they can enjoy it the way they do in basketball. And then on a different level, on the management level, we just have to get people in the pipeline. That's really what it boils down to. If you say, for instance, you have someone you can mentor in some way, say for instance, Dusty Baker right now, as an example, he's managing the Houston Astros. Now, he can't even bring one of his coaches with him, but it'd be so great if he can bring a young Black coach with him and help teach and mentor him. So when he retires and moves on, not to say that person should take over the job, but at least he'll have the experience learning from one of the best managers in the game. And you can have him in that pipeline where he can move around, and they know when they need someone like that, you can tap into that.
Does a role working with kids in that capacity, not necessarily at the professional level, never mind the major league level, something like that interest you? I mean, do you still feel that you've got something to give at the grassroots level?
Yes, and I'm doing that type of stuff. Clinics, we do a lot of clinics all the time, and I'm working with Major League Baseball and a few things that they're doing in the grassroots to, again, get African Americans to play in the game again, or just get them to get that, talking about that good fundamental teaching. So we are doing things like that, but it has to really be a collective thing where we all get involved in it and really stay with it and push it through. But I enjoy doing that to this day. You do appearances and you go out and do personal tutoring. That's all well and fine. But to really do it on a grand scale, Howie, we have to really come together and put our resources together and our time and get some of the former major league players who really want to work and give back, get them back into the mix, because there are a lot of guys out there who are looking for coaching jobs or looking to give back in that way. But, we need to tap into that so we can continue to grow.
And the kids need to know who the players of the past were, who the stars of the past were. The late Marty Noble told a story, sadly, that when you came to the Mets to manage that next spring in 2005, Marty was sitting down with Cliff Floyd, and Cliff didn't know a whole lot about your playing career. And then Marty's explaining it, and I guess he shows him, I don't know, your baseball reference page or a baseball card or whatever. And Cliff said, man, he had a career. As that started to make its way around the clubhouse in 2005, do you think that you gained immediate legitimacy from the players who might not have known about your playing career but learned in a hurry?
Yeah, it's funny. I always felt like that was always there. Now, there are a few players that probably have to Google, to find out what's going on. But I felt like, being with the Yankees and being in New York, the majority of the players had an idea who I was. Even through Omar Minaya, a lot of the Latin players who, growing up as a kid, I grew up in the Latin area. So a lot of the kids, knew of me. I went to Puerto Rico as a young player. So I kind of felt that I walked in with some kind of an instant credibility in some way, but I had to still earn their respect. So I get that from a lot of kids. Even when I do the Olympics, a lot of these kids don't know. And I'll just go, instead of going through my whole resume, just Google me. That's all. You'll find out.
You can do that now.
And they get a kick out of that. But yeah, I felt like even though I was a young manager, I felt comfortable moving to that environment because I felt like the majority of the players, even the veteran guys, had respect for me, and they felt like we could do this together.
So when I mentioned 2006, is it a pleasant memory or a bad one because of how it ended?
No, it was a very pleasant memory in that I felt we were taking those steps. We were moving up. From 05, when we knocked the Braves off their perch finally, they dominated that division for a long time, Howie, as you know. So I was very proud of my first year because, again, no one expected us to kind of move up the way we did that fast. So we got past the first year. Obviously, it was a huge disappointment not getting there with one pitch to go. I really felt like if we would have gotten the World Series, we could have made some noise there. And Carlos did a tremendous job for me that year. I still feel bad to this day that he couldn't pull the trigger on that, but he had a great series, and I love the guy, future Hall of Famer, I believe. So I felt that worked. I was very proud of that year, even though it ended on a sour note. The disappointing year for me was '07. That was where, wow, I mean, we just couldn't get over the hump down the stretch there. We had everything in order. We started getting hurt. The injuries we had with Oduke and Pedro, we never made excuses, Howie, but we were really struggling coming down the stretch, and we still had a shot. Phillies got hot, things happen. The baseball gods can be really cruel sometimes, as you know, and we just couldn't get it done. '07 was the one that really, to this day, really sticks in my craw, and it really hurts. But '06 was a year that I was very proud of because we were able to sip champagne that year. We were able to bring a lot of energy back to the city. Met fans felt really, really good about themselves. It wasn't about the Yankees all the time. It was about, we're back on the map. So I was very proud of the fact that I was part of an organization that brought that energy back to the city. Because I remember growing up as a kid, feeling that energy, feeling that's the way it was. So to be a native son and to bring that energy back was a tremendous thrill for me.
Man, I remember talking to you in the clubhouse probably 2 hours after strike 3 to Beltran that night. And when the initial very thin layer of disappointment wore off, you were able to look ahead to what John Mayne and Oliver Perez accomplished down the stretch. And you were excited about 2007. So as things started to slip away, that last week or so in '07, I remember the Cardinals, the Cardinals were in for a one-game makeup. There'd been a rain out earlier in the year, and I think it was Joel Pinheiro or something like that, shut the Mets down. But before that game, I walked into Tony LaRussa's office because the Cardinals, managed by LaRussa, had struggled terribly down the stretch in '06 before you got them in the playoffs. And Tony was able to kind of steer it back on track, and they went on to win the whole thing. So I said, Tony, I just want to ask you something. I didn't know him well. He didn't know me well. I said, when the wheels start to come off, how do you get them back secured so that you can steer the ship? He said, you got a few minutes? I said, yeah. He said, sit down. And for 20 minutes, he explained to me how the biggest thing a manager has to do in a situation like that is not let the players see that you're panicking. Don't change the lineup. Don't deviate from what got you to where you are. Were those things that you were aware of then, and were there other things when you think back now that, boy, maybe if I did something different in '07, we could have gotten to the finish line?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm sitting there listening to you, and it's all coming back to me very vividly. But
Sorry.
But I do remember, keeping that strong posture. I've always been a very confident, very positive person. So I remember even making light of situation at times, with the media, because I didn't want the players to feel panic. We still felt very confident at the time, Howie. It wasn't like, even though, the kind of ship was sinking a little bit, we still had a good feel in the clubhouse, I believe. We always had a good group of guys, very positive. So I did all of that. I remember sitting up 3 in the morning, trying to figure out how we can get this done. What can I do to make a change? What can I do to motivate in some way? And when I look back in retrospect, I think I did in my heart everything I could do. I really just felt like it was one of those weird baseball god things. I really believe that, Howie, because, injuries are part of the game. We had guys falling, but we never made excuses, and we just kept plugging. And that's why it was so disappointing, because I knew that if we can get back to that point where we were going into the playoffs, where we can get past that, first of all, it would have just taught us so much as a team. It would have made us stronger as a team. And I felt, again, we were going to be able to kind of, make up for 2006. So I remember going through a lot of that in my mind. When I think back now, I try not to torture myself with what I could have done differently. But if I thought we would have kept healthy, and that we just got a break here and there, I think that it could have been a totally different year, no doubt.
Well, most managers seem to have expiration dates. It's just the nature of the job, and you can sense when it's coming to an end. Now, I know that you were starting to get that feeling in 2008 and we're obviously disappointed at when and how it was done. But
Mhm.
where are you with the Mets now? Have you gotten past that? Have you kind of cleared the air? Is there some lingering good feelings, I hope, between Willie Randolph and the New York Mets?
Oh no, everything for me listen, initially it was devastating, and initially it was tough for me to kind of get past because of the way it went down. But I've always been a very forgiving person, and after I had time to kind of let it kind of sink in, I reverted back to the fact that, Willie, this was an unbelievable opportunity. It's a privilege and an honor to manage the Mets, to have been in that position. Now, regardless of how it ended, I would never look at it as a bad experience, as something that I regret in any way. I really have nothing but fond memories. Now, Omar and I think for maybe a year or so, there wasn't a lot of conversation. But initially, we ended up talking and really just saying what we felt about it. I ended up seeing Jeff and Fred after that, a year or so after that. We had pleasant conversations. So it was nothing like that. I don't really feel that it was any lingering resentment, or I don't harbor anything now, because again, like I said, I still go back to what a blessing it was for me to have the opportunity, Howie, and that I wouldn't have traded for anything in the world. Albeit there was a short stint, I still feel like the experience that I had, the way I was able to share that with my family and bring that back to the city, is something that I'll never forget, and never ever feel like it wasn't worth doing it, because it was just a great run for me.
So what's the next step? You're too young and you've got too much to give to this game for us to look at things retrospectively. What's next for Willie Randolph in baseball?
Well, right now I'm looking forward to the hopefully the 2021 Olympics. So we were just almost ready to qualify before everything started getting shut down. So I've been doing a lot of stuff like that now, Javi. I mean, I like we said earlier, I love teaching. I love giving back to the kids. If I'm not going to be a manager in Major League Baseball, if I can help give back in any way I can to the game. The WBC is coming up again. We finally won a gold medal after a couple tries. So with me being on the staff. So if that comes around, I'd love to do that. The Olympic thing, if it comes back around, we can continue to qualify and hopefully get to the 21 Olympics or the 22 Olympics, whatever, or the 2020 Olympics, whatever it is. I hope to be a part of that. But right now, I'm really content with just taking care of my family, loving my granddaughter. I got 3 beautiful granddaughters, and they love baseball.
Right.
So I get a chance to play with them and stuff. But right now, life is good, Howie. I mean, again, we need to just get a hold of what's going on in this crazy world we live in right now. And right now, I'm just hoping and praying that we can, get ahead of this pandemic and get back to some normalcy. I'm really excited about the game starting tomorrow night. It'll give us all a little bit of diversion and some entertainment. But we have bigger fish to fry in this world. And I just hope that as we move forward, we continue to open up conversation. We continue to open up how we can be better as human beings to help each other with all the inequality and injustices in this world, and just love each other and look out for each other. Because again, it's scary times right now, and I think that we all have to take upon ourselves to do our part to make it a better world.
Do you want to have a prominent voice in New York in that capacity to try and heal so much of what ails us right now, particularly when it comes to racial relations and the social inequalities that are at the epicenter of so much of what's going on?
Yes, yeah, and the thing about it, yes, and the thing about it, Howie, is that with what's going on right now, it's tough really to get out. I mean, everyone's still trying to the distance, but I love what the players are doing with this Players Alliance. I mean, you've heard about the Players Alliance that a lot of the young African American players are getting involved with. I think that's a step. And then talking to CC Sabathia and talking to Granderson, these guys who are spearheading this venture. I'm available. I've talked to them a little bit about getting involved in some way, but I'm at the point in my life where I think what you said is true. I want to be more involved. Moving forward, we have to take this opportunity to get involved and to make change and to educate each other and to listen to each other and understand how we can move forward and how we can really make this a diverse situation for everyone involved. So for me right now, I'm always available. I'm always here. Hopefully when things clear up a little bit, with Major League Baseball and what they're doing with the Players Alliance, I think that we need to take this opportunity to all do our part to get involved in facilitating change and making significant change, so it's best for everyone as we move forward.
Willie, you've got so much to give. Baseball needs you. New York needs you. I mean, there's a lot you can do to help get us moving in the right direction. And I hope to hear and see a lot more from you in the future, because it's always great at the very least catching up. So
Yes.
Willie, stay well. Best to Gretchen and the family, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, Howie. It's always great to see you, man. And I wish we had more time to talk here with him. You see, I'm passionate about what I'm saying to you,
I do.
and I really want to just really elaborate more. So call me anytime. I'd love to come back and chat with you, man. You know, I love you, and the best to you and your family also, man.
Thanks, Willie. Be well.
All right, take care, brother.
You too.